Nacho man, yeah. I got to be a Nacho man. Got to be a Nacho man. I got to be a Nacho man.
Welcome, Vault Dwellers. My name is Nacho Bidness, and today we are back at Electrical Island. Electrical Island is my place to do electrical tutorials and tinker with electronics in Fallout 4. It is by no means a completed settlement. If you are interested in those, I have several on my channel, and you can go check those out. I wanted to talk about color-changing light boxes today. Actually, specifically, other people, including the insane Sheklador, I'll leave a link to his channel, have asked me about this and left me some good comments, so I am going to do a little tutorial on these things. If you're not familiar with what I mean by a color-changing light box, this right here is an example. I promise you that anybody on Xbox or PC can do this. Unfortunately, I don't think that the required mod is available on PS4, and it is probably not the mod that you're thinking of right now, whatever that may happen to be. So this was one of the three major innovations that I had to come up with to make my Dance Dance Rebellion game work and make the screen happen. It is not the only thing that I had to come up with, but it is probably the easiest to understand and the easiest to do a little tutorial on. And as I said, anybody can do this. I promise you, if you stick with me to the end, you'll be able to build this or some other cool things. We're going to do that one in part one. Part two, we're going to take a look at expanding from a single light box to doing a complete light box wall. I think this would look great, for example, in home plate. I've seen a lot of lounges and stuff done in home plate with light box walls, but I guarantee you none of them are doing this. Or, instead of simple animations, we could come up with some contraptions and gadgets. For example, I recently had to travel for work, had to go through airport security, got me thinking about maybe doing something in Fallout for that, so we have the beginnings of a little security station here. We've got a security desk where a guard could be sitting, as well as a quote-unquote scanner that is made out of a power armor station that we can walk through, and most of the time we walk through there and nothing happens. We're a good guy, but uh-oh, we got a red light and an alarm. We're a bad guy and need to be dealt with. So lots of things that we can do with those color-changing light boxes. Those are only a couple examples. I would love to hear some ideas in the comments. As I said, anybody can do this. Let's get into the tutorial. I would normally skip over some of these beginning steps where we're going to program some logic elements in a tutorial like this, because the majority of my tutorials are what I would call for advanced players who have already mastered the basics of electricity in Fallout 4. However, I did promise that absolutely anybody could follow along with this thing, so we are going to go through all of the steps of programming the logic elements. The first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need a generator and a terminal. And we want to do this in isolation from the rest of the power grid, because if you connect a terminal up to your main power grid, it will program all of the logic elements that are on that grid. And so not only would we be changing things for the stuff that we're interested in that are directly connected to this terminal, but we would also be changing things for the entire rest of the settlement. For example, we would be changing stuff on these interval switches and power counters all the way over here. They don't have to be directly connected to a terminal, they just have to be on the same network. So I always recommend programming logic elements in total isolation with a dedicated generator. Now that we've got our generator and terminal, we're also going to need an interval switch. This is going to blink power on and off at an interval that we specify, and we are going to need 4 power counters. We've got 4 colors to our light box. That means we need 4 power counters. And we're just going to hook the generator, or excuse me, the terminal directly up to each one of these little logic elements here. The other thing, of course, that we're going to need is we're going to need the light boxes themselves. So let's go grab those out of the miscellaneous in the power menu, and I'm just going to set these on the ground, and I am going to hook these straight to settlement power. These can be programmed with a terminal, but for what we're doing today, it's just as easy to activate them with a button. I am just wiring each one of these things to each other. You can do it from the front or the back, but as you can see, we've got a wire now that goes to each of these things, and now they're turned on. And now that we have that done, we can go ahead and select our colors. So we had a red and we had a yellow, and if you're not aware, these just follow the old Roy G. Biv rainbow colors that we learned in grade school of red, orange, yellow, and in this case it's going to be green. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Actually, I think I want that to be a nice bright blue, and we'll also get ourselves a nice purple as well. Just going through these slowly so they don't actually go too far. There we go. Now we've got all of our colors set, and we can go into our terminal and set up our logic elements. We're going to start with the interval switch controller here, and we're just going to set an on time of 1 and an off time of 1. So that means that our light boxes will be on for 1 second and off for 1 second while it switches color. And that is all that that requires. If we wanted for that animation to go slower, we could set a longer on time, but you don't necessarily want it to be dark for very long, so you leave the off time at 1. Now we're going to set our power counters. It is not intuitive that for a 4-step animation, you want your power counters to be programmed to 3, because after 3, they will flip over to 0, and that is what's going to cause power to flow through that particular counter. Power flows when the counter reads 0. So we're going to want our power counters to read 0, 1, 2, 3 as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, because if they read 1, 2, 3, 4, that would mean that none of them were on. We would have an extra long delay in the middle of our animation while the thing resets. So I'm going to set it to 3. If, for example, I had 8 colors, I would have the counter set to 7. It's always 1 less than the number of steps in your animation. And now we've got everything set up and we're ready to wire. So I'm going to scrap all of those wires individually, because I do so much wiring in the game. I actually do take the time to remove wires individually. I've always been a little concerned that if I remove wires by storing connected objects, perhaps the game might be keeping track of some, kind of unused data. So that's why I take the time to scrap those wires individually. However, you could remove them simply by storing the terminal. And we also want to get rid of the wires in between these light boxes. Now that we've got the colors all set up, we don't want them connected together, because if they were, then the thing would glitch out, and every time a power counter turned on to one light box, they would turn on to all. And the last thing that we're going to do here is we want this animation to proceed from left to right. So I am going to have my power counters read 3210. If I wanted to reverse the direction, I would have my power counters read 0, 1, 2, 3. Hopefully the reason for this will become more apparent once we actually get the thing up and running and you're able to watch these counters in action. This last one will take the longest because we have to just connect and disconnect power. Every time we connect power to the power counter, you can see that it increments by 1. And at this point, we have them set up, and I don't need my little generator anymore. Just going to move these things over so that they're kind of right behind the light boxes, and it's going to be very apparent what is happening. We'll scoot these guys over, and now what I want to do is hook one light box to one power counter. I'm just going to go through them left to right so that we can again keep track of what's going on once we get some power in this setup. Each light box goes to each power counter, and then lastly, you remember that I had to connect and disconnect power to the power counters. Well, that's what this interval switch is going to do for us, but it's going to do it automatically for us. So interval switch gets connected to each power counter. Be careful that you don't connect the power counters to each other as well. And that one doesn't want to go, so we'll just kind of scoot this guy back a little bit and get our last counter set up. And we're ready. We've got a simple animation going already. Let's go ahead and hook our interval switch to the main power and watch the thing go. You can see that it's proceeding left to right, which is exactly what I wanted. And we can see that we've got 3210, now it's 0321, and now 1032. Each time the interval switch cycles, the power counters cycle as well. Now it's something that you could do with interval switches, delay switches, and they're delay on and delay off, but this requires a lot fewer pieces overall to make this happen. And I know at some point somebody is probably throwing stuff at their screen and saying, Nacho, you were going to show me how to make one light box change colors, not how I could have 4 light boxes animate different colors. And that is where the secret is and kind of where the sausage gets made here. Because the mod that is required is not any kind of electronics mod or anything else. It is Place Anywhere. Now I know that Place Anywhere is available on PS4, but I don't think that it has this copy-paste functionality that we're going to use. So we're going to activate Place Anywhere, go down to Object Properties, we're going to copy-paste position, we're going to copy the position of the first light box. We need Place Anywhere to do this for us because we need a level of precision that is not possible for your average human, or any human I think, to be able to achieve. Now that we've got the first one in our clipboard, we're going to paste the position for the second one. And is now overlapping this first one exactly and perfectly, and it appears that it is only a single light box. So there's the great secret. That is how I was able to make it appear that single boxes, or quote-unquote pixels, on my Dance Dance Rebellion screen had different colors. And it's not a huge wiring trick, but it is something that I've not seen anybody else do. And so we're just going to copy and paste the last one here, and you will notice that after each one of these I grab and select these power counters. That's because the wire doesn't update when we use copy paste, and I do want that wire to update. It will actually function if that wire is floating in outer space right there, but I don't know, just for neatness sake, I guess, I don't want that wire to just float and not appear to be connected to anything. One other thing that we can do here to neaten up our build a little bit is we can copy and paste the position of the power counters as well. So we're just going to copy that and come around the back here so that I don't have the wires getting in the way. And we're going to paste that position on each of these power counters. Now, word of warning when it comes to doing this particular trick. And that is that even though only a single object is shown on screen, the game is actually keeping track of all 4 of those objects that we have pasted on top of each other. And that means that even though this doesn't take up much space on the screen, it takes up every bit as much space as far as processor resources are required. And that is part of what I wanted to show you guys with copying and pasting these things. And why do you not want to grab the other? This is there we go. Sometimes with these overlapped objects, it can be tough to grab each of the different ones in order to get the wires to update. So one thing that we can do if they're being stubborn is go to Object Properties and disable an object. Grab and release. That didn't do it, so we're gonna Object Properties, disable object, and grab and release. That still hasn't gotten all of them, so Object Properties, disable object, and that'll be the last one. Now we can go back into Object Properties and enable all those disabled objects, and all the wires will update. The point of putting these power counters on top of each other like that is you can see how the numbers are all kind of glitchy and overlapping and that kind of stuff. And you can see the textures on the side are glitching out. And that's because the game is tracking 4 of these things all on top of each other. So be very careful when you're doing tricks like this where you're putting things on top of each other that you don't overbuild in your settlement. Light boxes are very demanding when it comes to processor resources, and that is a drain on your settlement size bar. Nevertheless, we can hook power up, and we have achieved our goal of what appears to be a single color changing light box. So there you go. That is how to do it, and I certainly hope that anybody would be able to follow this tutorial. It would really make my day if I heard somebody say in a comment, Nacho, I don't normally do wiring in Fallout 4, but I was able to pull this one off, and give me a video link of something that they've done with a color changing light box in their own settlement. That would just be fantastic. As I said, in part 2 of this series, we're going to expand our single light box into doing a single light box wall. You can see I've started to prep for that over here. And in part 3, we'll discuss moving beyond simple animations and using some more advanced things like, dare I say, a logic gate in order to control light boxes for other purposes. Example being our beginnings of a security station over here. I hope you will stick around for the rest of the video series, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe so that you will get notified when those come out if you ring the bell. And if you liked the video, hit the like button. If you did not like, please tell me why in a comment so that I can try and do better for you next time. Until next time, my name is Nacho Bidness, and I'm saying it's a great big wasteland out there. Let's go have fun in it.